Now on Denver 7 News at 7 a.m. on Local 3.
The State of the Union is strong because you, the American people, are strong.
We're taking a 360 in-depth look at the State of the Union address. We'll fact check what President Biden said about the pandemic and the invasion of Ukraine, plus how officials are answering back.
Colorado Congressman Lauren Boebert is making headlines for heckling the president. What she said that got her booed by others in attendance.
And in just a short time, you'll be able to start reserving backcountry spots in Rocky Mountain National Park. Of course, those spots always go fast, even though it's not summer yet.
Yes.
You got to book now.
That's right. Yes, and an improved system this year that hopefully it won't crash again. We'll explain that coming up. Good Wednesday morning to you. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Nicole Brady. Weather like this, of course, makes you want to get outside, even for camping. Meteorologist Lisa Hidalgo is here with a few more days in the 60s, Lisa.
Even some 70s out there. Yeah, in fact, down across parts of southeastern Colorado, we're going to be close to 80 degrees both today and tomorrow. Beautiful start to our Wednesday. You can see a lot of sunshine from our camera out east, Viera wireless camera there in Lyman. It's beautiful. We've got plenty of sunshine, 40s, even some 50s right now. Look at Arvada, 50, Golden 44, in Denver, some low to mid 40s. Beautiful conditions, very mild. Now here's a look at our highs today. Denver's going to be right around 70. That's just 4 degrees shy of the record high. We're going to be pretty close to the record high both today and tomorrow. And again, there's that pocket of upper 70s, even close to 80 near Springfield, La Junta, Trinidad, Pueblo, 40s and 50s in the mountains. Now coming up, this, is not going to last much longer. We've got another couple of days of it. I'll show you what our next cold front's going to do and just how much colder it gets this weekend coming up.
And right now we do have, unfortunately, a new problem out to the west side of town. It's going to be on I-70 right there as you would head up the hills going up towards Morrison exit and up to Lookout Mountain. So that's where that new crash is right now. Take a look from the camera over there and you can see that we have about a 15-minute drive just getting through this traffic jam with a couple lanes blocked. If you exited here, if you went out that way and exited actually at the Morrison exit, you take Highway 40 up to the next exit there at Lookout and then avoid it completely. Take a look at the map again over to the other side of town where we have a first time I've seen the metered lights come on, rear from 225 to I-25. Take a look from the camera there, and you can see how traffic is slow going to the light, and then there's just a couple of cars going through there. You can actually use the shoulders. We should be able to have 4 cars go through there at a time, but it's already backing up traffic, as you can see. We are only looking at 15 minutes down for Parker Road.
It was an historic first last night as 2 women sat behind the President of the United States during an official State of the Union address.
Vice President Kamala Harris and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi cheered behind President Biden. All morning long, though, we're diving deep into his speech and getting other reaction to it. This half hour, a 360 in-depth look at some of the key topics, including the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the pandemic. We're also fact-checking his statements about those and topics including the economy, as well as the Republican response and the Colorado Congresswoman who has a lot of people talking this morning.
We do begin with some breaking news about the invasion in Ukraine, though. The country's emergency service says 2,000 civilians have been killed in the war that has now lasted for 7 days. Ukraine and the U.S. response were major parts of last night's State of the Union speech. Their ambassador to the U.S. was among the president's guests last night. She sat next to the First Lady and received a standing ovation when she was introduced. Several members of Congress also showed their support for Ukraine. The audience was sprinkled with blue and yellow on their clothing, along with some Ukrainian flags. And during the speech, President Biden announced new restrictions aimed at hurting Russia's economy.
I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming.
The president is also outlining his plan to emerge from the coronavirus pandemic. He said his administration will work to keep offices and schools open, and he called on Congress to end the political polarization of the virus.
Let's use this moment to reset. So stop looking at COVID as a partisan dividing line. See it for what it is, a god-awful disease. Let's stop seeing each other as enemies and start seeing each other for who we are, fellow Americans.
Starting next week, Americans can order more free COVID tests, and the president said the administration's scientists are working hard to get a vaccine authorized for children under 5.
Meanwhile, in the Republicans' response, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds criticized the president's record both at home and abroad.
We're now 1 year into his presidency, and instead of moving America forward, it feels like President Biden and his party have sent us back in time to the late 70s and early 80s, when runaway inflation was hammering families, a violent crime wave was crashing our cities, and the Soviet Army was trying to redraw the world map.
Reynolds said reckless government spending triggered inflation, and Democrats mishandled the pandemic by imposing overly restrictive mandates. She called the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan under the president's watch disastrous. In response to Ukraine, she said the president's approach to foreign policy has been too little, too late. So we're hearing a lot of claims from both sides of the aisle, and we want to help you sort out facts from fiction.
Denver 7's Colette Bordelon joins us running down those claims. And Colette, let's start with what they said about oil reserves and oil prices.
Yeah, I know it's what I'm thinking about personally. And during the State of the Union, the president said the U.S. has been working with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil reserves from around the world. Half of that is coming from America. Of course, the hope is to lower gas prices and slow inflation, but there's still a lot of energy anxiety surrounding the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Oil prices jumped $5 just yesterday to a level not seen in more than 8 years. And gas prices in Colorado are up 6 cents from last week before the invasion. Some forecasts suggest we could be well into $4 a gallon this year. Now, sticking with energy, Biden said his clean energy agenda would cut costs for families by an average of $500 a year while combating climate change. But that does need some context. Those savings won't be seen for almost a decade. That estimate is from a nonpartisan research group that looked at how new regulations on the federal and state level could cut greenhouse gas emissions and the impact that would have on American households through clean energy tax credits. And that's only if Congress passes a major clean energy bill. And of course, COVID came up in the State of the Union, with Biden saying the new CDC guidelines, where most Americans can go mask-free, is an encouraging sign.
And thanks to the progress we've made in the past year, COVID-19 no longer need control our lives. I know some are talking about living with COVID-19, but tonight I say that we never will just accept living with COVID-19.
Those new rules from the CDC are based on hospitalizations, not community transmission rates. And while hospitalizations are dropping off, deaths are still high. Live in the studio, Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
Thank you, Colette. This morning, a lot of people are talking about Lauren Boebert and her actions just near the end of the speech. President Biden was in the middle of calling on Congress to pass legislation to help injured Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans when Boebert interrupted. She blamed Biden for the 13 service members who were killed during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
A cancer that would put them in a flag-draped coffin. I know.
Boebert also arrived at the Capitol wearing a shawl that read "Drill, Baby, Drill," a statement in support of increased drilling for oil and gas. This morning, she has not backed down from any of those comments. Denver 7 spoke with Colorado Congressman Jason Crow after the speech. He had some harsh words for his fellow Representative Boebert.
We've known for a very long time that Lauren Boebert doesn't know what she's doing. During a moment where the president was trying to honor our fallen as the commander-in-chief, a very somber moment that both Republicans and Democrats were recognizing and reflecting on. She took it upon herself to show politics and try to interrupt the president's speech, which was entirely inappropriate.
We have a complete rundown of Biden's speech as well as more fact-checking of his statements right now on thedenverchannel.com.
Back here at home, Louisville city leaders are going to give Marshall fire victims a break when it comes to rebuilding their homes. The city is working on an exemption from new environmental building codes after an emotional meeting last night. Denver 7's Christian Lopez joins us with what comes next with these exemptions.
Yeah, Brian, and council actually heard over 2 hours of public comment on this issue before deciding to move forward with that exemption. At least half of the homes impacted by the Marshall Fire were right here in the Louisville community. And last night, City Council members asked staff to draft a resolution exempting Marshall Fire victims from the new 2021 building codes. And those building codes focus on having a net zero carbon footprint, meaning fewer greenhouse gas emissions. Builders would have to install things like high efficiency windows, insulation, and siding. And some residents say these things are just too expensive in a rebuild, while others say that they are necessary steps to prevent more fires in the future. And counselors heard from several people before reaching that decision.
But with having to start over without having that preparation of knowing that we were going to build with a requirement of green builds, it makes it just harder to even know what we can do moving forward.
And on Monday, the town of Superior also decided to move forward with an exemption for Marshall Fire victims so that they can use the 2018 building codes. We're live in Louisville this morning. I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
Keeping a major convention here in Colorado, the $1 million offer to prevent it from moving to our Mountain West neighbor.
Also enjoying Colorado's great outdoors can sometimes get competitive. We're taking a look at the reservation system for backcountry camping at Rocky Mountain National Park ahead of its opening here in just a few minutes.